Hi guys, Teri here of Teri's Food Therapy, and today I am here with quotes for the Sweethand series, putting together one of my favorite recipes, which is Callaloo soup. And this is actually one of the recipes that I use often as a mother who is normally very busy. This is something that you could throw together really quickly. So what I'll be using today is some of quotes small appliances as well as their kitchenware to put together this recipe. Alright, so we're gonna get quickly into the recipe. Let me just grab my cutting board and we'll get into it. Alright, so I don't like to use like a lot of veggies with this recipe. I like to keep it really simple because the callaloo already has like a lot of veggies. So we're just gonna use some corn here. That's the first thing I'm gonna prep to put into my steamer. So I'm also going to use some carrots here. Just prep that. Okay, so you can do whatever you like with the carrots. I typically like slices, not too thick because you want to ensure that they cook thoroughly. But you could also do cubes. I'm also using a few pieces of okra. Even though the callaloo already has okra, I just like a little bit texture, taste in my soup. So just gonna slice up that. Don't forget to take the tips off of your okra. And I just like to cut them like this into some slices. Alright, and last but not least, to place in the soup, well, veggie wise, I will be using some green fig, and I must say these Tramontina knives, these are really good. I normally like a good chef's knife in the kitchen. It has a great weight and it's really sharp, so this is a really great product. Not a big green fig fan, so I won't be using a lot, just a little to add some body to the soup. And since I'm steaming these, I'm going to leave the skin on and just remove the tips. Alright, so that's about 6, and I'm going to use this paring knife just to make a slice down. Just one. And what that does, it helps to remove the skin a lot easier when the fig is finished cooking. Alright, so the veggies are prepped, and now I'm going to use my steamer and add all the veggies to it so that they can cook. Alright, so we are using this Hamilton Beach digital steamer. As you can see, there are 2 compartments. So I'm going to add the corn and the green fig to this, the lower base, and the okra and the carrots to the top. I don't want to fill it up too much because I want to ensure that everything can cook evenly. Okay guys, so we already have the pigtail on the stove. We boiling it to get rid of the salt. It's on its second boil, and I'm going to put together the aromatics now for the callaloo. So I'm starting off with my onion. For this, I'll use like about half of this onion because it's kind of big. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a rough chop on most of my aromatics, onion, pimento, and garlic, and then we will process it in the food processor. Alright, so this garlic is kind of small, so I probably use like about half of this. On second thought, if I have too much garlic, I think I'll use the entire thing. Just gonna press on the garlic just to remove the shells. And this is supposed to actually enhance the flavor, at least in my book. And it actually makes it easier to also peel the garlic when you crush it beforehand. Alright, and last but not least of the aromatics, I'm just gonna add some pimento like garlic, not onions. I add based on how I feel because you can't have too much flavor. So I'll be using like about 5 of these, and I like using more color because it actually does make a difference in the color of a callaloo. So just a rough chop again. So I'll be using the Black & Decker food processor to blend up the aromatics. This is an 8-cup food processor, and it has some really good suction cups on the bottom to prevent the food processor from moving about a lot when you are, pulsing or what have you. So we're just gonna give this like a kind of little bit of a rough chop. So you don't want to over process it. So just gonna start on low. Yeah, that should be good, and that was really quick actually. So, and this is what it should look like. And we're just gonna finish up with the rest of our veggies. So of course callaloo. So we have the callaloo bush, okra, and some pumpkin. I'm just gonna chop that up really quickly. Right, and so I'm just going to, I think I'll use this entire piece of pumpkin. Just remove the inside layer, just a thin piece, and of course the skin. If you're using these knives, please be careful, they are very sharp. Alright, so we have them clean, and we're just gonna kind of cube them up, I guess. Right, and you wanna cut them up not too thin but not too thick at the same time, because we want all of this to be fully incorporated with the bush by the time your callaloo will finish cooking. That we finished with our pumpkin, I am going to start working on the okra. Adding okra is up to you. I'm already adding okra to the soup itself, so in terms of the callaloo, I'm just gonna use like about 8 small okras. This goes into slices. So the smaller the okra, or I guess younger the okra, the better, because it cooks faster. As you know, as okra ages on the tree, whatever, it tends to get kind of hard, so you want to get your okra as small or as young as possible. And of course, again, we're cutting off the tips and the ends of the okra before we slice it up. Alright, so we have the starter ingredients all chopped. We have the aromatics, we have the pumpkin, we have the okra. Last but not least, we're going to get started on the dashing bush. It's really, really important that you wash your dashing bush leaves individually. You don't have to do this part, but I pull the tips off because that's what I learned growing up. It actually doesn't do anything, absolutely nothing to the bush, but that's what I did growing up, and that's what we will be doing today. So you're going to take this over to the sink, and we're going to get the bush washed. I'll be using all of the bush and half of the stems. Alright, so now that we have the bush washed, I'm just going to chop it. I know most people, some people still tie their callaloo bush. There will be no tying of the bush. We just rough chopping it, and honestly, in my opinion, it cooks the same way. So you're just gonna chop these stems. Just gonna place these in the same container with the okra. And just start cutting up our bush. You don't have to be meticulous about how you're cutting it, just chop it up. Alright, so we're blending this up with like about a cup of water. You can always add more water as you go because coconuts don't have a standard size, of course, but relatively a cup, and then you could, as I said, you can add more. And we want this to blend really fine to ensure that we could get all of the meat and juices out of that. So we're gonna put it on about 4. Alright, so I didn't need to blend this for long because of course we're using the Black & Decker blender. So just about 3 minutes to 4 on high, and it was ready. It's a really good consistency actually. And of course we're also gonna squeeze this to get all that milk out. Alright, and now that that is done, we're ready to put together the callaloo, put it on the stove, and bring all of this together. And as we put together the callaloo, we'll be using the Tramontina pot set, just to give you all a better look, right? So when you're using coconut milk that you blended yourself, please double strain. So first we add in the coconut milk, then we're gonna add the callaloo bush. And don't be worried if your callaloo bush is overflowing or is too much, just punch it down, it will cook down. It only looks like a lot now. Pumpkin tip. Once the pumpkin is like really orange, that's really gonna help the color of the callaloo so it doesn't look so gray. So make sure that your pumpkin is like really orange. Okra and the stems of the bush now. And last but certainly not least, we're gonna add the aromatics. And to take out the aromatics, I'm using a spoon from the Alpine Utensils set. This is very lightweight, which is great. And again, this will all cook down. So it looks like this now, but once it starts to steam, it's gonna cook down. So we're just going to cover it. See? And we're gonna place this on the stove and we're gonna cook it for about 15 to 20 minutes. And while this is cooking, we still have to do dumplings. So I'm gonna get the dumplings together. Of course, no soup is complete without dumplings. So we're gonna put our dumplings together. The callaloo is almost finished. So we're just gonna do these really quickly. We do these last because it cooks really fast. So you don't have to do a lot to it. So it's just flour, some salt, and of course, we bring it together with some water. Just mixing the salt. Add some water, and you add in the water gradually to bring the dough together. Alright, make sure your surface is clean before you put your dough on it. And just folding it in. With dumplings, you don't need to do anything fancy. The idea is to just ensure that the dough comes together and it needs to not be overly soft, at least for me. I'm just rolling each log. And I'm gonna take these over to the stove where I have my water boiling already. I'm gonna salt my water, and then I like to cut my dumplings into the pot. So that's what we're gonna do now. So we have our callaloo that's almost finished. The dumplings are boiling. The vegetables are already steamed. The pigtail is just waiting to be strained and added to the callaloo. So what we're gonna do now is I'll be using my Mastertech hand blender. and we are going to be just blending the callaloo just a little, just to kind of break it down even further before we add everything together and plate. So let's do that. Typically when making callaloo, I prefer like a more chunky style of callaloo, but for callaloo soup, I'll definitely blend it, and this hand blender is really handy when it comes to blending it on the stove. You don't want to have to carry it over to the blender and then make a puree, so this works really well. So the callaloo is at the perfect consistency, right? Just gonna strain my pigtails here. Alright guys, and there you have it, my Sweethand recipe for you all today. Of course, all of these small appliances, the cookware, the kitchenware that I used today, you can find it at Court. You can look out for my recipe on the Court Cook app. And that's about it for me today guys. Until next time, bye.